For me, it was first the change of country and the separation, and then the trust to follow what I'm calling in is coming. So I can trust the universe that things are coming my way that I'm calling in. And then that leap of faith of like, yeah, this is where I'm going. And I had no idea what I'm going to do afterwards. I always knew that that my soul's purpose is to be a healer in this lifetime. And there were many things I knew I had to do before. So I knew that when I quit, this is the path I want to walk. I didn't know how, when, where, what, but I knew I had to leave.
Hello, and welcome to The Art of Lost and Found, a podcast all about the process of creative recovery. From those low lows to the high highs, this podcast explores what it means to be a truly creative person and how creativity is a superpower that we all have that we can use for our own well-being and transformation. I'm your host, Brooke Eston. The guest on today's show is Hanna Ruddies, an incredible healer, guide, coach, and facilitator. Hanna spends her days guiding women through feminine embodiment, ancestral clearing, female sexuality, and womb wisdom. And although I have been to several retreats and worked with her privately to help clear my own unhealed traumas, that is definitely not the context in which we first became close. In what feels like a different lifetime, Hanna and I worked together in Vienna and Amsterdam when we both were part of the Impact Hub global team. We were deep in the world of social entrepreneurship, community building, and full-on startup life. But the company relied heavily on the passion and youthful energy of its mostly 20-something network, which Hanna and I were very much a part of until our systems could no longer handle it. Although we left at different times and for different reasons, that experience was a huge part of what led us both into our own deep transformational healing journeys. When Hanna was younger, she had endless bladder infections. She was diagnosed with Polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, experienced severe pain with sex and masturbation, and had all but given up on healing. But instead of giving up on her healing completely, she decided to first explore a different kind of healing journey and booked a spontaneous trip to Thailand for an intensive shamanism and Tantra retreat that changed just about every aspect of her life. She discovered the connections between her illnesses and her deep traumas that went all the way back through her family lineage. The deeper she went, the more she discovered. Hanna says the tantric, Taoist, and shamanic path opened her heart, body, soul, and reconnected her with her divine feminine energy, which opened up new relationship dimensions across all elements of her life. Originally from Hamburg, Germany, and currently living in Portugal, Hanna now spends her time helping women connect with their bodies by learning to see the beauty, grace, power, and purpose in all of life's challenges, joys, and changes. A special side note for this episode, in case you haven't picked up on it already, we are pretty woo-woo and unconventional around the topics of spirituality, mysticism, healing, and alternative medicine. If that isn't your vibe, then this probably isn't the episode for you. But if hearing things like the divine feminine or womb space is totally your jam, then let's get into it. Welcome to the Art of Lost and Found, Hanna. It's so lovely to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, Brooke. What a gift to see you again here.
Yeah. So you and I go way back to what feels like almost a previous lifetime when we were working together at Impact Hub, living together in Amsterdam, very deep in the world of social entrepreneurship and trying to use the tool of entrepreneurship to create a more just and fair and livable world. That experience, I think, served both of us really well. But both of us have continued our journey in trying to find what is that vehicle that we can use to better support and usher in the kind of world that we're both looking to co-create. So take us back to Hamburg in the 1980s with little baby toddler Hanna. And how did creativity show up for you initially at that point of your life? Were you creating worlds in your mind? Did you have imaginary friends? Were you making something physical? Were you exploring your environment? Like, how did creativity first show up in your life experience?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because for many years I couldn't really recall my childhood on so many levels, and it was a journey to actually access that. So now I was many times encouraged to be more creative, but I was blocking my own self. Like I was brought, or my mom like brought me to a drawing class, and I was like, until this day I have no idea how to draw a human or a dog or whatsoever. Like my lines just don't match any, like no one will recognize it but myself. But there was always a perfectionism inside of me who was trying to judge my own creativity. That nowadays I know why that was there, and that was from my lineage. But back in the days, I was just like, my own perfectionist was out there. And I was, at least how my mom told me, I was really creative and also having different imaginary friends and like being more out there and like explorative until an age of 4. And then it all somehow shut off. And then like a doctor encouraged me to play the flute. So that was one way of just really one way of creativity, whereas my flute teacher ended up being my therapist, I think, because we talked more than I ever played the flute. And there were days I was like, I really want to play the guitar, but like I always like tried, like I always found excuses somehow why I wasn't able, why I wasn't good enough. And I feel that my mom and dad always tried to encourage me, but I was blocking myself somehow.
Can you share a little bit about how it manifested anyway? Because that's what happens is you try to suppress these parts of yourself that you think, no, this is not a worthy part for the world to see, but inevitably it starts expressing itself in different ways and different forms.
Yeah.
So do you have a sense of how it started surfacing, your creative energy started surfacing in your life?
Yeah, so that might take us onto a whole different route, but let's see.
Great.
So so what I would think now, what I know now, is that our creative energy, at least in my belief, like lies in our womb space. And I was born with a vagina that was partially closed, and I had heavy cramps when I was bleeding, and I would get onto the pill, and I would so my body has always been like my biggest teacher, and my soul has been speaking so loud every day since I was little. I was born with a big skin sickness. So every time I tried to suppress my creative energy, like using that word, like it's like my body got louder and louder and louder, and I got more pain, I got more sicknesses, I had intensely bladder infection or whatsoever. And I would just keep having pain, and would then go with my own, like old me was then going to like the hospital doctors and getting pills and trying to like suppress it even more and suppress it even more, until the point I even thought that this is the way it is, and that's normal, and that's the way I should feel. And it would make me, every time I would take antibiotics or whatever, like there was a part of me was dying. Like I didn't feel it that way in that moment, but now I know. So and it was just like this image is coming out, this like society making me smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, like going to doctors and they're just saying, no, that's normal, just get over it. And I was like, no. So there was a part, and that was when we were working together in Impact Hub, where I was like gaining a lot of weight, and I was just I was fainting a lot, and so the symptoms that you're asking for is my body showed me, and for me that was like has always been the biggest messenger, and for me it took me onto the root in the root of the womb, and the womb of like where I come from and where I was like birthed from. And so for me, it was first the healing of the womb, and I wasn't bleeding for years. So to come back to like when I hit that wall, I knew that I heard this inner voice coming out and like, there's more out there, Hannah. Just trust, trust, trust. And the moment I surrendered into that trust and I quit, and I left my last boyfriend. So I took that leap of faith to just like let go of quite a few humans in my life, to let go of a job, to jump into the unknown of like, wait, what's out there? But I know that that is my path, because I know that my body is not here to live on this planet being sick all the time. Like, it's just not the truth. And that's kind of how like the symptoms was through my body. Yeah.
And how did you get to that place of when you're in pain and when something unfamiliar is happening to your body? It's very understandable and normal to rely on the structures that we have around medicine, right? To go to the hospital if you're constantly fainting or you don't get your period for an extended period of time. So can you talk a little bit more about how you got to the point where you could even hear that voice inside you? And then once you heard it, did you hear it and immediately trust it? Or was there a period of starting to familiarize yourself with that voice and understanding and accepting that that is my intuition? That is my higher self. That is me trying to guide myself to find where my true north is. Like, can you go into a little bit of that lost to found kind of catalytic moment?
Yeah. So thinking back, I think it was really when I kept going to doctors and them saying that it's getting better with that pill, or that it's all okay. But I kept, like, there was a point where, for example, I would have sex and afterwards immediately would need to go to the hospital to get antibiotics because I had a bladder infection with blood inside of my urine. And I was like, that's not like, so, but then they said, you have to do this in order to get it better. And it didn't. So I think so I was going in cycles where someone would tell me something, or I would go to doctors and I would bring my partner or friend and they would be annoyed by me bringing someone else's opinion along. And so I felt that the doctors even got scared, and I'm a really sensitive person. So I'm really sensitive in terms of energies. And when I felt that even doctors were like, I don't know, like they didn't say I don't know, but I felt that I don't know, that's when I was like, no, like this can't be true. But because I didn't study gynecology or I didn't study XYZ, I was like, no, she must know better because she studied it. Which in some forms and in some ways I totally resonate with that, but not in this form. So and then to your other question regards my intuition, I feel that I've always been someone who I've always heard her. Like I've always heard my intuition on some level, but I've never trusted her on the depth of it. Like I think there my head kicked in, such as moments where it's like, no, trust the doctor. She studied for 10 years. So like when it came to like moments of job decisions or health, I was like, no, let's lead the brain because it's important. But that's when I felt that their opinion and their choices that they would tell me didn't have a solid ground. I think this is when I decided to trust my inner voice more than I would trust them. And because I was just going in circles, and it wouldn't make sense. And at the same time, I had like people in my surrounding being worried, and that would also help me. Like I was so tired, like I had zero energy. And also when like the first doctor would tell me, you have diabetes. And I was like, okay, what? So I think within 4 weeks, I had 5 different diagnoses. And I was like, this can't be true. So, and I think that's when I was like, no, like this can't be true. And that's when I like took that leap of faith to like dive deeper into my intuition.
Mm-hmm. What did you do? Like, what was the first thing that you did? Did you just quit and give yourself that kind of open space to just be with yourself and feel into what was next? Or did you do it kind of more gradually? Like, ooh, I found this program that I want to enroll in and I want to study, and I've just bought it. So now I need to quit my job and move forward. Like, how much spaciousness did you give for the unknown, like the complete unknown? And how much of it were you like, I'm just going to take one step at a time here and see the path reveal itself to me as I'm walking?
Yeah. So the first thing that just came to my mind is that I'm a manifesting generator when it comes to human design. Human design is like a very...
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty fast, and I work super fast, and I'm pretty fast in manifesting, and I'm not really like waiting a year, let's say. So if something comes, I go with it. So I was, back in the days, I was living in Serbia with my partner back then. And there was a moment where I was even considering asking him to marry me. And 4 weeks later, I decided to end this relationship. So I think and I knew that there was a part of me who was just like, you're either going to stay with him and you're going to like be suppressed, not by him, but by my own choice. Or you're going to take that leap of faith and go and move to Portugal. I had no idea why I moved to Portugal. It was just like a calling. There was the ocean, I guess, but other than that, I had no idea what was expecting me. So I think that was the first. So I decided to leave him. Beautiful man, just not the person I'm supposed to marry. And so I decided within a week to move to Portugal. So that was my first. I still kept my job, but I moved countries because I needed a new environment where I could breathe, where I could stand on the horizon, see the horizon and breathe more and see more and be with the waves. And I knew with me separating from him, I knew that this is when I'm going to dive into sexual healing. And because I was most afraid of my sexual healing, I was prolonging the separation of him because I knew that that's where I'm going to go, and I was afraid. So that's kind of was in the place. So when I moved to Portugal, I was like, okay, now it's time, Hanna. Now you need to dive deep into this. So, and then I was at a training in Cambodia on authentic leadership. And that's where I was sitting next to a beautiful woman in the plane who was telling me about a Tantra training that she's just done with incredible teachers. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I signed up. I didn't even read the website. I didn't know anything, but I knew that I was calling in sexual healing. I was sitting next to her. She told me I would never go to a Tantra training without being recommended because of the most potent energy we have. I wouldn't go randomly online. So I showed up in Thailand.
And you were in Cambodia at this time,
yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah. And I showed up in Thailand and I was like, hi. And that's when I only knew that it was shamanic and tantric and Taoist training. Because I didn't read anything. And there were 3 teachers. It was the teacher, the founder of the biggest Tantra festival. And then a couple where both of them are still my teachers. So, and that's kind of when it all started on a deeper level. But and that's when I quit my job. I knew the moment I booked the place, I booked the training, I already told my boss, I'm most likely going to quit in a month, just so you already know. And then I came back from the training and I told you, yeah, it's definitely happening. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So for me, it was first the change of country and the separation, and then the trust to follow what I'm calling in is coming. So I can trust the universe that things are coming my way that I'm calling in. And then that leap of faith of like, yeah, this is where I'm going. And I had no idea what I'm going to do afterwards. I always knew that that my soul's purpose is to be a healer in this lifetime. And there were many things I knew I had to do before. So I knew that when I quit, this is the path I want to walk. I didn't know how, when, where, what, but I knew I had to leave. So this is kind of how it unfolded. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you give a little bit of context really into sort of three very loaded terms that you put out there that maybe some people don't have the association with? The first is the womb and the womb space, right? Because typically we hear that referred to as the uterus, and it's in a more of a technical medical kind of context. But the womb space and the womb center, the womb energy, I think it'd be helpful to unpack that. And then also the other three styles of teaching and training that were part of that experience, the Tantra, the Shamanic, and the Taoist.
Our womb space is, as women and also men, have an energetic womb. Now you will most likely ask me, what's an energetic womb? But let's stick with the first one. So physically, our womb space is, for us as women, our core, and it's our center, and it's our center of creation, where we create life and where we also create death. And it's our center of creativity. And at the same time, our womb space, which involves our uterus, and it is the place where we as women store most of our emotions and our wounds and our traumas. So if in my case I had a really intense feminine lineage, so their traumas were stored in my womb, and hence I wasn't bleeding. And I had a lot of pain. I was diagnosed with infertility at one point. So all of that was stored in there. My womb, in its, let's say, in its more functional way, couldn't work because it was stored with traumas, and it was stored with blockages inside. So if we as women don't allow ourselves to go through the cycle each month and bleed and go through death and feel, and if we have a tendency to be disconnected from our cycle and disconnected from our creativity, and by creativity I mean the same, like just an idea, right, or the creation of something, not just the painting of a piece of art. It often happens when we are disassociated from our womb space. And it's also the place where we, as women, we store an imprint of each of the lovers that we had in our lives. So if their blockages and traumas can be stored in there, and hence we might feel, we might get PMS, or we might get a lot of mood swings throughout the cycle in a weird way, or we might stop bleeding, or get endometriosis or PCO or cervical cancer or whatsoever. So there is so many reasons of why it's so important to come back to that nature, that core that like lies inside of us, and we don't just see it as a functional organ that annoys us each month. Because it's the root, and in our topic, it's the root of our creativity, and it's the root of creation, because we all, literally everyone, came out of a womb, right? Like we all came, and we all came onto this planet, and that gets me into Tantra. We all got onto this planet through the activation of sexual energy. And Tantra, that if you asked 100 Tantra teachers, they will all answer you a different way. But for me, it's a form of belief that involves sexual energy, and it doesn't suppress it. It doesn't neglect it as a lot of other beliefs do. And it invites us to come into union. And at the end, sexual energy is 5% of the whole tantric belief and the whole tantric practices, but it allows it to be there, and it allows the sexual energy to be in our lives and to flow with it, let's say. So for me, Tantra is the coming into union with myself, with others around me, and with the planet and the universe that we live on. And for me, that's weaving in with the shamanic practices, which for me is it's the energy work. It's the work where we connect with different peoples on an energetic level, when we connect with different dimensions, of the universe, of the world, when we connect with different people that already passed away, or like ancestral clearing, when we talk to the earth, when we feel the earth energy, when we work with the elements. So it's like, for me, shamanic is like the whole going from things we can just touch to like going one layer deeper and like feeling what is a table or what is that plant feeling on an energetic level. And it's a lot of breath, and it's a lot the medicine of the air, the medicine of the earth, of the water. So yeah. So that's, and for me, like that weaves so beautifully in, because for me, a lot of the shamanic work is around clearing and clearing the past and clearing the energies around us. And for me, one of the most fundamental practices when we move into tantric practices is that we are cleared, and that we don't engage with someone so that they get an imprint of our wounds, but that we take full ownership of the shit that we've been through, about the shit our parents went through, and then we take ownership and say, this is like, it's enough. Like, it's enough. I'm not available for that. I clear it, and then I can meet someone else, because then that connection will be much deeper and more fulfilling on so many levels.
I think the clearing aspect is so fundamental and so essential, yet it's something that is not talked about at the same level as adding more stuff. How do you begin the clearing process? What is that? What is the entry point into that space? And what kind of guidance or support would somebody need to be able to really do that well?
What I believe is, when we clear on 4 levels. We clear on the mental aspect, on the energetic aspect, on the emotional aspect, and on the physical body aspect. So in my belief, like, it doesn't serve us if we just clear our brain and like say, no, I'm not available anymore for, I don't know, for evil relationships. Because there is, most of the time, there's something deeper, and we need to also clear our emotions. So we need to be able to cry through that and to really feel it, and to feel the pain that certain aspects of our life has brought to us. And we need to clear our energy field with it. And we need to clear our body, because most of our wounds, if they're not stored in our womb, they're stored somewhere in our bodies. And sometimes we have pain in our jaw or in our, I don't know, leg or whatsoever. And it's not that there's actual pain, it's just that there's a wound there that wants to be taken out. So, and for me, it's always the first step is always understanding that it's okay to let go, and that it's important to let go, because we are always told that, like, so many people are afraid that they don't know who they are anymore if they let go. Some people are afraid that they don't, like, who am I if I let all of that go? And the important part is that that's when you find yourself. So for me, it's always the first, like, the layer of understanding that it's okay. And then it's also to slowly maybe start letting go of physical items. And then for most of the journeys, it is required a facilitated journey, I believe, because there are deeper things that will be let go, especially on the body level and on the energetic level. Because sometimes we get stuck on the emotional one and we just cry and cry, or we get angry and angry. And when we don't have the funnel to let things out, we get or we get angry, and we like mess up all our relationships because it's all inside and we don't have a funnel to let it out.
Yeah.
But some people first need the guidance to understand what are the tools to release, so that they can then safely have that as a practice at home. Because for example, me, I do release practices at least 3 times a week, because always there's something that we can like there's always an emotion either that came up, or me now with my new puppy I need to move through, but there's always something, right? It's like releasing and letting go. It's not a practice that we do once a year or once a life. It's part of our journey, because there will always come people into our lives that we are invited to let go. There are always things we get that we're ready to let go. There are always energies that come into our life that we're ready to let go. And we evolve, we change. And it's always important to ask ourselves, what am I still available for? Like really, truly, what am I available for? Because that's when we also shift, and when we close or let things go, we open up and we can actually receive the things we are available for.
Yeah, that resonates so much with me. Once you start really realizing and recognizing that you're in an unhealthy cycle that's not making things better, and in fact is making things worse, like emotionally, physically, spiritually, making it worse, I think that is helpful in identifying that line between release and commitment. Right? Do I lean into how do I let this go and create more space, or do I lean into now I'm doubling down on this and I'm just pushing hard in this direction? Right. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or perspective on how you identify where that line is based on what experience you're having.
When we release, it's so important that we release from that state of gratitude, right?
Yes.
And that like gratitude, like thank you for all the teachings you've given me, for the time you spent, for the laughters, for the lovemaking, whatever it was. And not from this like, I don't want you anymore. Because that's when we don't fully release, right? That means something is still stuck on that, because we've not, I don't necessarily connect so much with the word forgiveness, but like when we don't completed that, like because some people will always only come into your life for a certain period, to be there for a certain period. And some people will stick for the rest of our lives. But I think this piece of gratitude and forgiveness and love is so important. Yeah. And then in terms of the thin line between do I invest more or to let go, for me personally, it's been the more we create or find ourselves, however we want to call it, it's the more we only attract people in our lives that meet us on an eye to eye and on a heart level. And from female friendships, I want to say that if we feel manipulated, if we feel judged, if we feel that someone is just taking a lot of our energy, if we feel deprived after talking to that person, if we constantly do that, if we cry after calls but can't show that, like if we can't show, like if we cry after a call, like sitting there like, what did I do? But she doesn't hear me, or like what? And I'm not saying this can also be in male and male, or male and female, right? Anything of that. But I think the point where we can't talk about all of that, and where we have to hide certain aspects of ourselves, it's time to let go.
Yes.
And it's not time to double down onto to invest more into it. And we genuinely feel like, if you feel that genuinely your energy is high when you left that person, or you just feel connected and you feel respected and you feel fully seen, this is a place where you should invest. Like, because that's a nourishing friendship. Like, it's nourishing you, it's nourishing your soul. But it starts with you accepting all aspects of yourself. And when you accept all of aspects of yourself, someone else can also respect that. But I think, especially in female friendship, because we have this pattern of jealousy and this comparison, and from, the history of our female ancestral, all of that, personally, I was always afraid to be around a lot of women because I thought they're all going to talk behind my back, really a lot of nasty things about me. And because I felt like a lot of women, there was a lot of evilness, like manipulation. And when women are in their power and in their strength, they are wholeheartedly there. But if they are lost, they manipulate on small things. So if you feel that you manipulate or whatsoever, it's time to go. And generally, like your heart says, and if you doubt and you're clinging on, let go, let go, let go. Yeah. Because when you let go, someone else who's like seeing you and loving you and like hugging you will come.
Yeah, I can attest to that. That's been my experience too. Different people, different opportunities start to reveal themselves to you once you kind of change your energetic field.
Yeah, totally resonate with that. Yeah, very true.
So I would love to move into, I guess, the last part of this podcast, which would be around more of the tools and the practices. And we've talked about a lot of things at a higher level, you know, and you've gone into some detail, for example, with the clearing and the 4 different levels. So you also mentioned that you do releasings and clearings multiple times per week. Can you share a little bit about your practices, both the ones that really serve you, as well as maybe the ones that you might recommend for somebody who hasn't really started to go into these deep waters yet and needs maybe a softer point of entry?
Yeah, sure. So maybe starting with the more soft point of entry. So there I would start with what I also do once regularly is to write down whatever, well, like if you have, let's start with you really want, or like your deepest desire is to live in the countryside and have a big house. And then your head kicks in and tells you why you can't have that. So you write that down. And then you ask yourself, is this my ultimate truth? Is this really true? And then it's like, no, it's nonsense. Your brain is just something. And create what you really desire. So that's one of just like the journaling aspect of just like journaling out what are your limiting beliefs, what are blockages, asking yourself, and then translating those limiting beliefs into empowering statements. Because our brain is so good at manipulating us. And once we can shift that, and whatever we really believe in, it will happen. So it's like coming like behind that. So that's one releasing tool. What I do on a more body level is that shaking is one of the easiest release tools ever. So just like shaking your whole body all the time. I do it every day for at least 10 minutes. And by shaking, I don't mean just like this, like full on, like whole body movement. Stretching out your tongue and sounding with an open mouth releases your jar. And because our throat and our jaw are connected to our womb and our vagina. So the moment we open them, we release and we open our magical, feminine, beautiful parts of ourselves. So that doing every day to like open your jar and sound with an exhale, because when we sound, we release and we move energy. So sounding, movement, and breath are the 3 core fundamentals in moving energy. And whatever you do, also on a beautiful level, if you self-pleasure and you don't sound, you won't feel the depth of your pleasure. But also when you move and you want to release, if you don't sound with it, you won't release everything of it. So sounding, and that's really important, because when you are, and you look funky, you look weird, you look but the more you do that at home, the less then you won't stand in a supermarket line and you won't be annoyed or angry at someone else, because you won't project your own shit onto this person, let's say. So this would be the shaking, the sounding, the breathing, the stretching out your tongue. So these, and the the journaling are 3 things that I really always recommend that people can do on their own. Then maybe as the last is that water is it's the most beautiful cleansing tool as well, and the cleansing energy. So which is why most of us shower every day, and to just like cleanse your physical body. So, and for me, it's my practice with the ocean, to hug the ocean, and like whenever I'm in there, I'm cleansed. And I'm very much aware that not every human lives next to the Atlantic Ocean. So the shower, and whenever you feel that you're moving through something or you want to let go, have a cold shower, jump into a lake, a river, whatever water is next to you. And maybe on an energetic level, it's always good to clear your space with some sort of incense or Palo Santo or sage or copal. And there are tons of practices around that and different energies everybody works with. But to also clear your energy in your home, especially when you've been through a really intense situation or conflict or just like heaviness, to cleanse your energy so that it won't stay with you, but you can let it go. So that will be on the energetic, on the mental level, and on the physical body level. Also, what is so lost in terms of release maybe is to like trust your intuition, but also to trust your body. So like move your body every day, it releases automatically. Like I dance every day, right? Like just do things that get you into your body, because then it moves energy and it moves your body and your physical body. By that, you activate the different tools of activating your emotional body. But you might then by default while dancing start crying, and that's good. Like let it out. So I think it's also the permission to, because we are told, and especially a lot of people that follow the yogic path, that we hold poses and we hold that structure and we hold the masculine, and if we hold longer, we are even more amazing. And I believe by awakening our feminine and our intuition, we need to flow more, and we need to be more free, and like to be free with our movement, or in the terms of like artistic way of drawing or writing, to be free with our pen, right? So it's like the more free you can move in a practice of dance, for example, the more expression will come out of you, and the more you will be able to release on that day. So the more open you will be for new experiences as well.
Yeah. And I also can attest for how uncomfortable that can feel at first, and how unfamiliar, and how you feel silly or foolish, or, you're not doing it right, or something like that. But the more practice you have, and the more you allow yourself to experience that discomfort, the quicker you get to a place where you can experience the therapeutic benefits of it. Right? You kind of, you get out of your head of judging yourself, and you move into the experience of your body, where it is more natural and it just flows, and the judgment on yourself is unnecessary.
And for me, the perfectionist as my little girl, like it's the best medicine to like the movement and all of that. And that path is totally like not fully, sometimes she comes back, but like out, because especially when you move and you don't move in a traditional yogic or like guided way, let's say, but more like free flow, there's no right or wrong, right? And it shouldn't be. Like, it's your body guides you, and she is the only one who knows what you need. No one else knows. So
I'm trying to also apply that same framework to the creativity and the creative process. Right? Like, you don't need skills to move your body. If you want to be a professional dancer where you get paid for that, then of course, like, skills are generally required in that realm. But that is something different, completely altogether different. But we don't always fully embrace that and understand, we have our creative superpowers within us that are always accessible, that have nothing to do with skills, have nothing to do with money, have nothing to do with an audience, right? Those are different things fundamentally. And one allows you for a therapeutic benefit. The others, which are all outcome based, the therapy isn't present in that because it's focused on the outcome rather than the process.
Yeah. It's goal oriented. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So in sort of bringing this all home and
Yeah.
bringing it to a close, I would love to ask you a final question, which is a bit of a choose your own adventure question.
Okay, Brooke, tell me.
Yes, you have the option of this is the piece where we distill the wisdom of your journey, right? You've shared a lot about kind of your experience and how you moved through that period of feeling lost and disconnected and moving into a place where you feel rooted and grounded and found. So if you think back on an earlier stage in your journey, the choose your own adventure invitation is, what wisdom would you share either to somebody else who's listening to this podcast who might be at an earlier stage of their journey, or to an earlier version of yourself? What wisdom would you offer to encourage commitment and momentum and faith in this process of moving from lost to found?
Yeah, I would say that for me, the ultimate, or what it comes back to is, and especially when you listen to a little piece of my story now, is that the body has always been such key and fundamental in this process. So I would always say that your soul speaks through your body, and that it's time to listen. And that when we have the courage to listen to everything our body tells us, like the sicknesses, the pain, the diseases, whatever we have, this is when we create or find our vision of ourselves, when we have the courage to look into this. So whatever you feel, whatever discomfort you feel, whatever stuckness you feel, know that this is just your soul trying to speak to you. And it's just her it's her language to make herself be heard. And it's her way of knocking on your door and saying, hi, it's time to change something. It's time to change something, but I'm here with you. Like, you're not walking through this change process alone, like never. Like, sometimes it might be that you walk, it seems like you're walking it alone, but know that you're never the only person who suffers from XYZ. There are always other people. And that sometimes you find yourself as Brooke in a healing container with a lot of different women, and it helps. So, and just know that your soul, or whatever you want to call it, if you don't believe in a soul, just know that whatever it is, it keeps knocking on your door until you listen. And if you don't listen, it will get louder, and it will get louder, and it will get louder, and your pain will increase and your suffering will increase. So it's time that you listen, and that you take the time to dig into the underlying roots of whatever it is that makes you feel stuck, and that makes you give such discomfort. And that you really take that courage, and it might be a week, it might be a year, it might be 5 years of digging, but it's worth it. It's worth every single minute. And every time I lost faith, or I was like, oh God, another breath journey where I need to like meet my grandmother and see her suffering, or go through my vaginal operation again. I remembered that everything we clear, we also clear for our children. So if you don't want to have children, just look into the collective. Like, you're not doing this alone. You're not doing just for yourself. Whenever you clear something for yourself, and when you listen to your deepest pain, you also listen to it for your sisters or brothers or friends or families around the world. Because whenever we shift something inside of us, we automatically shift something for the people around us. So you're not doing this alone, not only for yourself, also for the others. So just keep reminding yourself that there is courage and trust endlessly out there, and that the universe has your back always.
Beautiful. Yes, this resonates with me so much. Thank you so much, Hanna, for showing up, for bringing your your timeless wisdom, your incredible ability to translate a lot of these really complex experiences into more digestible pieces that people can access a little bit easier. Not everyone needs to quit their job and run off to Southeast Asia and do full immersion, month-long retreats. But I think the wisdom that you're communicating based on your experience is really nourishing for people.
Thank you, Brooke, for having me, for journeying together for so many years now, and for being so vulnerable and honest, and for sharing your gifts even more with this podcast. So thank you for inviting me and for asking beautiful questions.
And if somebody wants to find more information about you and the work that you're doing, where should we direct them?
So I have a website, which is my name, so hannaruddies.com, and same on Instagram and Facebook.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, Hanna. I love you so much, endlessly.
Endlessly. I love you too, Brooke. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Art of Lost and Found podcast. I hope that you are feeling inspired and empowered to go forth and explore your curiosity and creativity. As always, if you want any more information about any of our guests or the show notes or anything we discussed on today's episode, you can head over to www.brookeeston.com/podcast. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.